Hi, my name is Mia and welcome to the very last video of 2024. It is now the 31st of December, so I'm making it just in time before the new year starts. I hope everyone had a good Christmas and that you're gonna start into the new year healthily and happily. And yeah, I owe you guys a book review video. I haven't made one in quite a while. Yeah, I just haven't been reading as much lately. You might have seen that we've been traveling quite a lot, and while we're traveling I usually never read. And yeah, also on a sad note, I lost both of my great-grandparents recently, so I just also didn't really have the headspace to read at all. But yeah, now that we are getting some colder days here, I have picked up a couple more books, as you can see behind me, and I also listen to audiobooks yet again, so I'm going to talk you through those as well. And because it's quite a long list now of the books I recently read, I will just get right into it. Starting off with The Details by Aya Ginberg, and this was a really sweet short book. Details really describes the book well because it's all about the details that the main character notices in the people around her. So through the things that she notices, we kind of get to know her own values and the things that matter to her. So I thought this was really well written, really nice book to pick up, and a quick one to get through. Next up is Time Shelter, and this book packed a punch. This was crazy. It kind of is like a meditation on time. There's less of a plot and more of like an accumulation of ideas and musings on the topic of time. It also talks through like the entire history of Europe basically, so that was really interesting. But yeah, I feel like this book is not for everyone, I will admit. I loved it, but I do feel like you have to have a little bit of a basic understanding of European history in order to like really understand this book. But yeah, dives into topics of nostalgia, dementia, just all kinds of really, really interesting things. So yeah, if you're knowledgeable in European history and you're up for a crazy ride, then I highly recommend this one. Alright, the next book I read was actually an audiobook, and it's called Black Butterflies, and it is about the siege that happened in Sarajevo in 1992. So it's pretty recent history still, but it's not really talked about very much. So I just found the book to be really fascinating. It was very well written. It really painted the picture of the war and the emotions of the people that were living through it. It's about this artist who still lives in Sarajevo, and her family kind of immigrating to the UK to get out of that war environment. So really multifaceted, very, very interesting book. Next up is Remarkably Bright Creatures, and you have probably seen this in every bookstore you've ever been to. I found the cover really intriguing, and it really was a sweet little story. Little disclaimer, I have a weakness for books in which animals are given a voice, so that's probably why I like this one so much. But it's about this sweet old lady who works at an aquarium where she befriends an octopus, and together with the octopus's help, they kind of solve the mystery around the lady's son's disappearance and death. And throughout the story, the whole town kind of comes together, and I just thought it was really wholesome and sweet. Alright, next up I'm going to talk about another audiobook. It's called 10 Minutes and 38 Seconds, In This Strange World by Elif Shafak. And Elif Shafak has definitely become one of my favorite writers. So I'm just on a mission to go through all of her books currently. But this one is about a prostitute in Istanbul, and she gets murdered, and kind of like in the 10 minutes and 38 seconds during or following her death, she remembers different things, different moments throughout her life, and that's how we kind of get to know the character. But we also learn a lot about Turkish culture, and that's what I just really love about her books, is that they don't just tell interesting stories, but you also actually learn something about another part of the world. And speaking of Elif Shafak, of course, I read her latest book right afterwards. It's called There Are Rivers in the Sky, and this is probably my favorite of hers up to date. It kind of combines stories from all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia to more recent day Turkey, and it also combines Turkey and the UK. You also get part of the story set in like 1850s London and again present day London, and it talks about so much about immigration, again from Turkey to the UK. It talks about nature, obviously rivers and water is just like the guiding theme that connects all of these stories so beautifully. And like I said about the previous book, we just get to know so much about culture and history of that part of the world, and I just thought it was really beautifully written, and I highly recommend this one. Alright, next up I read Clara and the Sun, and I will say this was not the book for me. This is probably my least favorite book. I have heard very divisive opinions on this book, so that made me curious to pick it up for myself. A lot of people love it, and it won the Nobel Prize in Literature, so a lot of people must love it, but I don't. But let me just tell you what it's all about. It's kind of this dystopian story in which there are artificial friends for children, and the story is told through the perspective of one of those artificial friends, from a robot's perspective, and how that robot looks at humans and the world and the emotions, and things like love and stuff are a really big topic in this book. But for me, the reason I didn't like it is because it progressed really slowly. It was kind of repetitive. It was also predictable in my opinion, and in a way it kind of felt like it's a children's story but written in like really complicated language so that only adults could read it, if that makes sense. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you've read it and what you thought of it, but definitely not the book for me. Alright, on the other side of the spectrum, this is definitely one of the best books I ever read. It's called Whereabouts, and it's just full of these beautiful observations of just mundane daily life, and it's just full of like raw and honest emotions of the writer, and how she again observes the world around her in like a really poetic and really beautiful way. So short little book. I really enjoyed this one. Next up, we have another audiobook, and that is called The Anthropologist. And as the name already says, in anthropology you study people, and that's kind of what that book was about. It was about this couple in their 20s who are from different countries, and together they live in yet another country, and they also observe the people around them. They talk about what it means to belong, or also to feel like you don't belong in the place where you currently live. So really interesting topic, and for me kind of relevant too, because my husband and I are from different countries living in yet another place far away from each of our homes. So that one kind of hit home, and it had some really beautiful things that I could connect with personally. On to another audiobook. I listened to 100 Years of Solitude, and that's been on my list for quite a while, but I have been rightfully scared to pick that book up. It is this book It's a magical realism book set in a fictional town in Colombia, and it follows the Buendia family, so it's a multi-generational novel. The themes in the book kind of follow along Colombian history and politics, but like I said, in like a really fictional, magical way. Now, this book was really fascinating. I really enjoyed it, but it is difficult. You have to pay such close attention to every single word, to try and keep the characters straight, because a lot of them have actually the same name or very, very similar names, and there's just so much crazy stuff happening all the time that it's kind of hard to keep the storyline straight. But I am very glad that there is now also a Netflix series about 100 Years of Solitude. So of course I watched that as soon as I finished reading the book, and it just helped me organize my head a little bit more around that story. But if you've watched the series or you read the book, then you will know what I'm talking about, because even the show kind of starts messing with your head a little bit, and you definitely have to be glued to the screen to fully follow the story. Next up, I read They Both Die at the End, and this is a young adult teenage book, and it very obviously is written as such. It has a lot of like youthful slang, which makes it a little bit awkward to read even at my age already, but I stuck with it because the theme of this book is just so interesting. Now, the title gives away the ending already. They both die at the end. It's about these two teenage boys who in this version of the world, you get a call from an organization called Deathcast on the day that you will die. So right after midnight, those two boys get the call, and they connect over this app called the Last Friend app, and they meet up, they become friends, and we just follow along every step on their last day, and kind of how they grapple with imminent death, and also the certainty of dying, but also the uncertainty of not knowing how they're actually gonna die. So still a really interesting book. Definitely, again, a quick one to get through. Recommend, especially for my younger audiences. I listened to What the Dog Saw by Malcolm Gladwell, and I have read a couple of his books already, and they all just have really interesting, thought-provoking themes, and this one is no different. It really spans a wide variety of themes, from hair dye to ketchup to a dog whisperer, and just all these little things. And through those stories, we kind of get like a deeper insight into into the human psyche and our thought processes and our decision making. Next up is another audiobook, and it is called Freedom by Angela Merkel. And Angela Merkel, as many of you will know, was the German chancellor pretty much my whole life because she was chancellor for a very long time. So she just released her book Freedom, and it was especially relevant to me, like I said, because she's basically the only politician that I was conscious of throughout my life. And I found the book to be really well written. It kind of describes her background and also the reasons behind certain political decisions that she made. She doesn't just talk about German politics, but also about world politics. So we get everything from still a divided Germany, to now the Ukraine war, and up to the latest US election. So really cool insights. I very much enjoyed that book, and it was kind of nice for me to reminisce upon all these big but also small political happenings throughout my lifetime. And if you are German too or interested in politics, then I would highly recommend you pick that one up as well. And now we have Going to Meet the Man by James Baldwin. I have been wanting to read books by James Baldwin for a very long time. This one is kind of like a collection of 8 short stories. Full disclosure, I am not fully done reading this book. I'm still missing a couple of the stories, but yeah, it talks about life in African American communities, and yeah, just touches on a lot of themes, and every story kind of talks about a different theme, but at the center of each story is African American life and experience. So yeah, James Baldwin, obviously a very famous, very influential American writer. So yeah, I'm excited to read the last few stories for sure. And now coming to the last book, which I finished just yesterday. It's called Go as a River, and it is set in Iola, Colorado, between the end of World War II and all the way into the Vietnam War. So quite the turbulent time in the world, but also in the US for sure. And it's about this woman who's the only female in her household, in a very troubled household of peach farmers. And it really touches on a lot of very emotional topics. It talks about grief, but she also gets closure finally at the end. It obviously constantly has the theme of nature connecting the whole story, and it also talks about the displacement of Native Americans, and just very, very good book. I could not believe when it was over. And if you read the book, then you will know exactly what I mean, because the book is rather slow paced, but like perfectly so in my opinion. And then the end just like is so densely packed, but again, not in a bad way. It was really well done. But when it's over, I was just in disbelief, and I was just staring at the page. I was like, there has to be more. But there wasn't. Anyways, very, very good book. And I am very happy with my book choices yet again in the recent months. Let me know what you've been up to reading lately, what your favorite books have been this past year. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you got a little bit of inspiration for future reads for yourself. And Happy New Year. See you next year.